Happy Sunday, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day so far. My name is Andrew Heishman. I'm the lead forecaster here in WW116. So in today's video, we'll be taking a look here at the tropics. We'll be taking a look at Hurricane Rick here in the Eastern Pacific. And we'll even take a look here. We might have some activity going here on the Southern Caribbean side of things. We'll take a look at ECNS ensembles regarding the Atlantic Ocean. And then after that, we'll be taking a look at the storm prediction centers. We do have our threat for severe weather today, a potential outbreak that is going to occur with large tornadoes, large hail, and extreme damaging winds all expected for today. We'll be taking a look at the satellite view, so basically see what areas are mostly sunny, what areas are pretty much overcast in terms of the latest observations. Then we'll be taking a look at forecast models for today's severe weather. And then at the end of the video, we'll be taking a look at the National Weather Service hazards like we usually do, so basically just warnings, watches, and so on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get on into it. So there's really not much expected here in the Atlantic, like I said. We'll keep an eye on here on basically the Southern Caribbean over the next few days, is in terms of the ECNS ensembles kind of showing some support of some type of tropical activity going on under here. But other than that, there's really not much expected here in the Atlantic. We are kind of in a silent period. But like I said, we are still in hurricane season, and that will be a thing until November 30th. So basically, with the tropics, you do have your waves where one moment it's just, relatively quiet, and then the next moment, next thing you know, everything's just going crazy. And then you get like a lot of storms and stuff. But, just don't be surprised, if we still get a few more storms before the hurricane season is out. We already are over the peak hurricane season in terms of that. I think September was, kind of the mid-range of September was like kind of our highest peak in terms of the tropics. But we are still in hurricane season, and we will be for a little bit over a month. So just don't be surprised, if things heat up over the next few weeks. So we move on to the Central Pacific here. Basically, not much is expected. So in terms of the Atlantic, like I said, things could heat up. We are in a La Nina, which typically does, favor a lot more tropical systems here in the Atlantic. So like I said, just don't be surprised, if things do pop off here in the next few weeks. So now we're going to be moving on here. We're going to take a look here at Hurricane Rick that we've been monitoring, we looked at yesterday. New updates are out. Maximum sustained winds at 85 miles per hour, so we're probably seeing gusts over 100 miles per hour. Maximum central pressure, or minimum central pressure, is at 980 millibars, moving to the north at 6 miles per hour. Now, we do have some good news in terms of this. Yesterday, this thing was expected to become a major hurricane. That is no longer the case. The National Hurricane Center actually has this thing, I believe, making landfall as a Category 1, more of an upper-level Category 1 here. Expected to make landfall around 7 o'clock a.m. on Monday, so tomorrow. So by tomorrow's video, this thing will likely already be, somewhat inland. But this thing is relatively expected to die out quickly, as it does go over the kind of a mountainous terrain, which does not agree with tropical systems. It basically just causes them to disorganize very, very quickly, which then leads to them weakening rather rapidly. So that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of this, not too much new. We do still have our hurricane warnings here in the red, our tropical storm warnings here in the blue on each side, basically saying in the blue, tropical storm conditions are expected, in the red, hurricane conditions are expected. So that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of that. So let's go and take a look here at ECNS ensembles here, basically for the Southern Caribbean, like I was saying. Go ahead and download this GIF here, and we'll go ahead and see exactly what I was talking about. So we do have a few members, kind of moving all over the place here, basically just showing nothing really. But it's whenever you start to get these high density areas, of members saying there's a potential for lows to form down here. This is actually kind of showing that potentially, we could see, a tropical cyclone develop. It's showing like it's like next Sunday into Monday. That's whenever all this is expected to go down. I don't know if it's going to have enough time to really strengthen anything significant. As it's generally moving to the west, it might move over basically throughout this area and maybe move into the, basically the Pacific. There's really not much to say about this right now. Like I said, this is still pretty much new to me. I just saw this today. But, we'll keep an eye on this over the next few days. But anything else in the Atlantic, there's really not much going on right now. So moving on to the Storm Prediction Center, we do have our enhanced risk for today, severe threat level 3 out of 5 for bits of the Midwest here. We do have a slight risk, expanding out, and a relatively large marginal risk, bits from the western Ohio Valley all the way through the plains here, and actually bits into the southeast. So in terms of that, we do have a pretty large tornado threat for today, a 10% chance of significant tornadoes here in basically the black dashed lines, What this means is that, anywhere inside this area, every single 25 miles, you have a 10% chance of seeing a tornado EF2 or higher, potentially in that zone. And of course, the further we do move out, we do kind of move into another area of 10% chance, non-significant. Now, that does not mean that you cannot have strong tornadoes in those areas. It just means that generally the largest tornadoes are kind of expected here in this 10% significant zone. And then we have this relatively large 5% zone, from the plains all the way through basically, central and southern Illinois here, in which you can see basically every single 25 miles a 5% chance of seeing tornadoes in that zone. And then we have that 2% zone, that stretches a little bit further out, basically just meaning a 2% chance of tornadoes every single 25 miles. So, in terms of wind, we do have a 30% chance of significant winds here, basically across northern Arkansas, stretching through basically central and eastern Missouri. You can see here, and then moving into basically bits of western Illinois here. So basically what this means is that you could see winds. You have a 30% chance of seeing winds every single 25 miles, at a point, pretty much 70 miles per hour or more. And then, of course, we do have that 30% chance that's in the non-significant area, basically meaning that you could see some, basically winds over severe criteria, being 58 miles per hour or more, which, of course, locally that could be higher, with some storms, you never know. So basically, like I said, 30% chance every single 25 miles, you have a 30% chance of seeing damaging winds in there. Same thing for the 15% chance and the 5%. So that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of that. We do have a 5% chance here across the northwest here. You can actually see we do have a marginal risk in effect. But today, this is where our major concern is, basically across the Midwest. We do have a TSTM here basically for the southeast, especially for like Florida. This is basically showing that generalized thunderstorms, are expecting, not necessarily meeting, severe criteria. But like I said, our major concern for today is here in this region right here. So that's what we're dealing with in terms of that. So we move on to hail here. We do have a 30% chance of significant. This is actually new compared to what I saw. So basically, inside the significant area, you have a 30% chance of seeing hail, 2 inches in diameter or larger, across here. And there's even a little sliver here in the 15% zone, seeing potentially, hail 2 inches in diameter or larger within here. And of course, outside of the significant zone, basically, it does not mean you can see or you can't see, hail that size. It just means that generally, the hail could be over 1 inch in diameter or larger. Moving out to the 15% zone, every single 25 miles, 15% chance of you seeing 1 inch, in diameter hail and larger. And then we move out to this, this 5% zone that basically stretches, from the central Great Plains all the way through, basically the western bits of the Ohio Valley here. Inside of basically every single 25 miles, you have a 5% chance of seeing hail 1 inch in diameter or greater. So that's what we're dealing with in terms of today's severe weather. Like I said, we probably will go live today. I'm not sure exactly what time, but whenever these storms start to fire off and stuff, I'll leave and I'll post on our Twitter page. If you guys want to follow that, I'll leave it in the description below, so you guys can get the updates on whenever we will be going live for today. Or you can go ahead and turn on the post notifications here in our YouTube channel. You guys can subscribe and make sure you turn on the alert so that you can see when we do go live in terms of that. So. But that's basically what we're dealing with for today. Tomorrow we do have the threat for severe weather, basically across from the southeast all the way up to the northeast, especially cutting straight through the mid-Atlantic here. We do have a slight risk, basically severe threat level 2 out of 5 here for basically bits of northern Georgia, northwestern South Carolina, basically central and western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, basically central and southern West Virginia, and central and western Virginia here inside this light zone. And of course, we do have the marginal zone, stretching all the way up from basically New York all the way down to bits of northeastern Alabama. So basically, in terms of that, we do have a 2% chance for tornadoes here, basically across the mid-Atlantic. Basically, every single 25 miles, you have a 2% chance of seeing a tornado inside of that zone. In terms of wind, wind does seem to be our major threat for tomorrow. Basically, 15% chance of seeing winds over severe criteria here, and in a larger 5% zone here, basically stretching out from the southeast all the way up to the northeast, showing there's a 5% chance of seeing damaging winds over severe criteria. And then we move on to hail. We do have a small 5% zone here across basically the mid-Atlantic and southeast, showing that there's a 5% chance we could see, hail 1 inch in diameter or greater. So that's basically what we're dealing with in terms for tomorrow. So for day 3, we do have another pretty large slight risk here, basically stretching from the southern Great Plains all the way through the central Great Plains, basically from pretty much southern Nebraska all the way down to central Texas here. So for on day 3, this is actually for Tuesday. We are expecting some large hail and damaging winds throughout this area. But as this does move closer, we start a few days out, and but as this does move closer, we'll get more into that as it does approach nearby. So in terms of day 4, we do have that 15% across the southeast here. We can see so severe weather is expected on day 4 as well, being Wednesday. So from today until Wednesday, there is severe weather expected through the United States. So just stay tuned for that as we move on. So now we're going to take a look here at the satellite and radar. We do have a lot of precip and moisture pretty much going here across the west, especially for California. With all those droughts going on, we really needed a lot of rain. Finally there's some stuff going on here. Relatively strong low here. You can see these tight ISO bars basically showing that winds, they could be pretty high, at the upper elevations. You can get really gusty winds, in which we'll actually take a look here in a moment at radar. There is, for a hint for the hazards, we do have winter storm warnings in effect, for the hazards. We could see a lot of snow in the upper elevations, so just stay tuned for that. The totals are pretty crazy. So generally across the southeast, it's relatively clear. We might have some upper level clouds here, across like Georgia and stuff. We start to get into more thicker clouds, throughout central and eastern Louisiana into Alabama. We can see this little dip here in the jet stream. This is a little trough, basically a shortwave trough, showing that there is an area of low pressure that is here in the central Great Plains. This will be moving to the east. And this will be the main driver for today's severe weather later down the line, later today. You move into the Ohio Valley, it's relatively overcast. You can see here these thicker clouds moving up into basically the northern Great Plains, North and South Dakota, relatively mostly cloudy. And then we move on to basically the southwest. See, it's relatively clear here. And of course, we do move into the northwest, and it's pretty much overcast, with all this rain and this moisture that's moving into the western side of the country. So let's go and move on to forecast models for today. Basically today's event is expected to be a QLCS, basically just a quasi-linear convective system. Basically a long line of storms is expected today, with all types of severe weather. So we're going to go ahead and take a look. This is basically what I like to do. I don't, really, I don't know if I like doing it, but pretty much this just gets you that, the major idea for today. So we'll go ahead and take a look here at, supercell composite, basically just showing, moisture, shear and instability, kind of all in one, showing this. We'll take a sounding here for central Missouri. We'll take a sounding here for basically, central Arkansas. And we'll take a sounding here for eastern Oklahoma, kind of like we did yesterday. So generally we do have a slight veering wind shear pattern, which does support tornadoes here. We have a little bit of a hooking hodograph here. Dew points in the lower 60s, which is definitely good enough. We have our wet bulb zero temperature shooting right through 700 millibars with a relatively low precipitable water indicator, basically meaning that large hail is definitely possible here through central Missouri. Like I said, we do have enough moisture. We have enough instability. We might have a little bit of a cap, but storms should be able to, pass right through it. Instability side of things, we're pushing over 1,200 joules per kilogram, which, isn't the most, but, it's definitely enough to get the job done. Decay pushing over, 810 joules per kilogram, which can definitely, cause some, instances of damaging winds, in which we actually saw in the outlook for today. So in terms of the basically central Arkansas here, we do have a, veering wind shear pattern, which can support tornadoes. Dews in the mid-60s here. Wet bulb zero temperature a little bit higher with a higher precipitable water. So hail will be, likely smaller in this sounding, if hail would form at all. Decape, pushing near 900 joules per kilogram. So basically just marginalized, damaging winds possible. But yeah, we could definitely see a tornado here. We do have that nice veering wind shear pattern. Enough shear to get tornadoes on the ground and stuff. So that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of that. Then we move on to pretty much what were we looking at here? Okay, we'll move on to basically eastern Oklahoma here. We do have the wet bulb zero going right through 700 millibars. This is actually relatively nice. Precipitable water, quite low, 1.36 inches. Relatively dry atmosphere in the mid levels of the atmosphere, which is definitely supported for hail. It's a good thing. Decay pushing over 900 joules per kilogram. So basically, we could see some, potentially damaging winds with this sounding as well. We do have that veering wind shear pattern, kind of more tight, kind of a little bit weaker shear going on here. But tornadoes can definitely still form, here. And we do have enough instability to get the job done as well. So yeah, that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of that. So let's go and take a look here at the dew points here. Basically, as we move on, We do have dew points in the lower to mid 60s. Here, basically across, Missouri here, we do have a little bit higher dew points, maybe in the mid to upper 60s here in Arkansas, and a little bit higher, basically the upper 60s here in eastern Oklahoma. That's basically what we're dealing with in terms of that. So let's go and take a look here at our lower level jet. This is basically, showing wow, that's actually, a decent amount of shear here, showing, winds probably up to 40 knots, maybe up to 50 knots in some areas of, 925 millibar shear. This is actually relatively close to the surface, so this definitely does support, some tornadoes. We do have our low area of low pressure right here, and like I said, this thing is moving to the east, in which we can actually see this is where it's at right now. This is that little dip. This is our trough. Our low pressure is right in here, and so that's basically what we're dealing with for that. So overall, kind of nice 500 millibar shear as well. Showing basically over up to 70 knots. In some areas, it's definitely supportive. That'll arc your updrafts, which will keep them basically away from your downdrafts. Which, if you have your updrafts and your downdrafts, on top of each other, basically, the storms would die instantly. But if you have strong shear, it basically separates that, which can keep storms long-lived. Basically allowing them to live longer, which we could see today with that QLCS we're talking about, that long line of storms that is expected to occur. So, in terms of instability, here we'll go ahead and take a look at mean layer CAPE. Decent amount of instability for today. Some areas maybe reaching up to, over 2,000. It looks like a little bit less here, but we're looking at majority around 1,500 joules per kilogram. Like I said, that's enough to get the job done. Definitely you can get some tornadoes and stuff going on with that, especially with this higher wind shear too. The higher you get closer to the low. But that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of that. We'll go ahead and take a look here at NAMNEST real quick in terms of instability here. We might have some pockets here, going up to, 2,000 here. It really just depends on the model. Some models are, you can't really take one model, 100% the way it is. You can't take it 100% seriously. You have to kind of get all the models' ideas. But yeah, that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of that. We're going to take a look at dew points here too. Yeah, kind of the same thing, showing the higher dew points here in eastern Oklahoma. Basically the lower to mid 60s here. Across Missouri, and of course, you got the, mid to upper 60s here in Arkansas, and you can see basically where this front moves through, that cooler air moves behind it, so this would be a significant cool down for a lot of people too, this relative cold front you can see here. This is where our low is located, this is where our cold front is located, and the cold front will be driving a line of storms through the region for today. So that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of models for today. Like I said, we'll probably be breaking this down a lot more whenever I do go live later on today. So stay tuned for that. All right, so let's go ahead and move here on to the National Weather Service hazards here. We do have a few things that we need to discuss. Non-precipitation side of things, we do have dense fog advisories for northeastern Colorado. High wind warnings here for basically bits of the basically the west coast here. You can stretch it from literally Utah into Nevada, into California, into Oregon. We do have those high wind warnings. So basically, like I was saying, we have all that precip, that very strong low right here off the coast of the west coast of the United States. And that low is bringing some pretty heavy winds, for the upper elevations. The higher you go up, the more free it is from basically, winds to, to get more stronger as you move up in the upper atmosphere. They do get a lot more stronger. High wind watch is in effect as well for basically, it looks like a bit of basically Wyoming here. And then we have wind advisories, throughout basically much of the west coast. You can see here, basically winds could get gusty at times. So, now we move on to some interesting things. Winter storm warnings in effect for basically eastern bits of the country, eastern bits of the state of California here. We do have a winter storm warning here in central Idaho as well. And we do have winter weather advisories somewhere on the map, but I don't really see them. Maybe they might be overlaid by the winter storm warnings, but I'm going to show you guys something, okay? Here's the radar. We can go ahead and get some of the, the data here. You can actually see where this low is located. It's spinning basically counterclockwise here, bringing all this moisture into the west coast. Take a look at this. We could see snow accumulations up to 48 inches inside of this warning, above 8,000 feet. Total snow accumulations up to 48 inches. That is literally 4 feet of snow. That is a lot of snow, and we can see winds gusting as high as 60 miles per hour. Honestly, that's almost like blizzard conditions in that point. So I don't know if they would issue blizzard warnings or not for that. But anyways, that's a lot of snow. 48 inches of snow, and winds as high as 60 miles per hour. So definitely kind of crazy. We do have that relatively strong area of low pressure here, basically across the northwest. You can see right here off the coast. But yeah, that's basically what we're dealing with in terms of that. Now we move on to the flooding side of things. We do have flood warnings here for northern Missouri, flash flood watches, and flood watches here for basically bits of the Ohio Valley stretching from, basically eastern Iowa into basically extreme northwestern Ohio. We do have that, that flood watch in effect for basically northern California, as we saw, all of that, that precip moving into the region. Definitely kind of crazy. Then we have flood warnings, basically here across Louisiana. We have some in Missouri here, and we still have one here on the coast of basically Texas here. And we do, it looks like we still have, or it looks like another a new flood warning has been issued, kind of for that same area we've been paying attention to over the last few days. But generally, flood warnings are in effect for basically bits of Indiana as well. So that's basically what we're going to do it for today's video. If you guys have any questions, if you guys want to know, kind of locally what you can expect in terms of severe weather, make sure to leave a comment down below. I'll make sure to get it, I'll get to it for you guys. But anyways, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day today. Like I said, I do plan on going live sometime today, but, more updates to follow on that, in which I'll actually post it on my Twitter page below. You guys can go ahead and check that in the description below. But anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful day today. My name is Andrew Heishman. I'm the lead forecaster here at NWS 116, and I'll see you guys in the next update.